My game plan this week was to run the Weezing and Slaking to do big damage into their initial threats and try to take out the Trick Room setter, and then bring in Dondozo and Tatsugiri because they don't have good resistances into the water type guy. Starting with the Weezing, I ran Terra Dark so that I have a way to survive their psychic hits. The intention was to just Terra Dark right away if I saw that they were going to double Expanding Force. I had Focus Sash in case they were going to single Expanding Force so that I could survive one hit. And then I had Maximum Special Defense because I wasn't going to be doing any killing of anything with the single attacks anyway. So I wanted to be able to survive their neutral special hits because they have a lot of them from Porygon 2, as well as an Armor Cannon maybe from Armarouge. Otherwise, the rest of the points were dumped into special attack, and I gave him enough speed to outspeed a minimum speed Porygon 2, but otherwise to underspeed everything else that's faster than Porygon 2. So if Trick Room does go up, I'm still a big threat. I can underspeed, I can't underspeed the Hat, but I can underspeed the Indeedee and the Armarouge, and before Trick Room goes up, I can most likely outspeed the Porygon 2. I had Taunt specifically for Porygon 2 because it has to run Eviolite, meaning that it can't run Mental Herb, so I can always get a Taunt up on it. It's also useful against Hatterene if I'm going to be thinking that they might be the Trick Room setter. Otherwise, Sludge Bomb and Dark Pulse were the attacking moves. Sludge Bomb gives me good damage into their psychic, their fairy threats, and Dark Pulse gives me good damage into the Armarouge and the Indeedee specifically. Then going on to Slaking. Slaking needed to have this amount of attack so that Knockoff could have the most chance to knock out Armarouge. It gives me 75% to take out Armarouge, which is as good as I could get it to be, and that's why I needed to have Life Orb as well. I had Terra Ghost in case of Crabominable to maybe dodge one of the close combats because one hit is going to take me out. And then otherwise, I had Hard Press against all of their fairy threats because Hard Press is enough to go all their fairy threats, including their Ninetales, including their Jigglypuff, and importantly the Hatterene. It also gives me a clean hit to take out Indeedee, which is really helpful. Then I gave it maximum special defense because I wanted to survive as many of the expanding forces as I could. The last move is Brick Break because it was either that or Protect or Drain Punch. And I thought Drain Punch seemed like it would just be a win more move because I only needed it against Sandslash, and if they're running Sandslash, I'm probably doing okay anyway. And the recovery is not going to be that helpful. I wanted Brick Break just in case they got an Aurora Veil up, and I couldn't stop it, or in case they got other screens up that I didn't expect them to have. There was no point in investing in physical defense because I'm not going to survive a hit from the Crabominable anyway, so I ran Terra Ghost as my potential option against that. And he is there to take out any of their threats in one hit, really. A lot of effort went into Dondozo's spread this week. So talking about the moves first, I had Wave Crash as my main way of doing damage. I had Heavy Slam to hit their fairies because all their fairies are considered light enough for Heavy Slam to do a lot of damage. And then I have Sleep Talk as my last move, just in case I get hit by a Sleep from Jigglypuff, and especially because I just didn't have another move that I needed to use. I was hitting all of their guys with enough coverage with just Wave Crash and Heavy Slam, and I didn't see myself using anything else. Then I chose not to run Maximum Attack Adamant, and I got to run Careful because the calcs came out so that I was either going to one-shot everything anyway, or I was going to be two-shotting it with no real chance to one-shot it. So I didn't need to be running Maximum Attack. I could afford to invest the rest of it into Special Defense, which gives me a really good chance to take as many hits from Expanding Force as I can. Then in terms of the HP and the item, I gave it a Figgy Berry, and it's specifically so that I could get the recovery if they endeavor me down to 1 HP, and then I recover just enough to have an 18.75% chance of surviving an Expanding Force hit. So For Hatterene under Psychic Terrain, if they take me down to 1, my Figgy Berry activates, and then I go back up to 80 HP, and that gives me this 18.75% chance to OHKO. I need 3 HP to get 1 more HP back from Figgy Berry, and the calculation point was that there's a whole lot of these 79s, and then it jumps to 82, so there's really no chance of getting any more chance of surviving the Hatterene Expanding Force. This is the best that I can do with the level of investment that I'm willing to make, which I thought was pretty good, and it gives me a really good option, because otherwise their Endeavor followed by Expanding Force is just going to take this guy out, and I really don't want that to happen. I had Terra Steel because I wanted to be able to resist all of the hits from Expanding Force as well as Dazzling Gleam. I knew it made me weak to close combat from Crabominable, and there's not a lot that I can do about that. But this gives me the good resistances that I want, and it gives Heavy Slam Stab in case that ever came up. Tatsugiri was just bad this week, but I needed it because I needed the boost for Commander. He was just here to be a Mirror Coat counter guy. He has enough bulk to survive 1 special hit, in particular to survive 1 Dazzling Gleam or 1 Expanding Force, and then to Mirror Coat that back, and then he's done his job. He has Terra Psychic in case I save my Terra for long enough to be able to use it on him, so that he can resist fighting moves as well as psychic moves, and then do damage back with maybe Draco Meteor and maybe Hydro Pump. And I needed Hydro Pump specifically and not Muddy Water because it gives me a chance to OHKO Armarouge, whereas Muddy Water was just not good enough for that. But really, this guy wasn't very good, and this was the best that I could make out of his set. He also didn't need speed at all because he wasn't outspeeding any of the relevant threats, so I could put the rest of the investment into his HP so that I can counter more damage back, and special attack to give me some chance of doing damage into low bulk threats. Then for Murkrow and Gholdengo. Murkrow is here with Rain Dance and Whirlwind. Rain Dance is here to weaken Armarouge's Armor Cannon going into Gholdengo, and also to turn off Aurora Veil from Ninetales in case they have a Ninetales out. And otherwise, I have Foul Play and Tailwind. Tailwind just here for utility, potentially against Gholdengo if they don't have, with Gholdengo if they don't have Trick Room getting set up, and Foul Play to do damage so that I can have 2 hits into someone with a Focus Sash. It does do pretty good damage into Indeedee and Sandslash, and it does okay damage into Armarouge, so it might be able to secure a kill if I have Gholdengo out against an Armarouge, but it's just there as a way to do damage. He's set up with enough bulk to specifically survive Dazzling Gleam from Hatterene, or an Armor Cannon from Armarouge. So he's set with a specific amount of special bulk that I wanted, so that Dazzling Gleam can never kill, even with max. But the rest of it then went into physical defense, and then into his HP. He wasn't going to be doing any attacking, and all of his moves that he was really going to do were priority, so I didn't need any speed at all. Finally, for Gholdengo, he has a room service kit this week, which gives me the chance to underspeed Porygon 2 and everyone faster than that group. It's not going to underspeed Crabominable. There's no way to do that without Iron Ball, so I didn't feel the need to set any of that up. And then I gave him Terra Water so that I had another move into Armarouge. The other option was to run Shadow Ball or maybe Terra Dark, but then Terra Dark makes me really weak to Dazzling Gleam, and Shadow Ball is actively bad into their Pokemon like Indeedee. So I ran Terra Water because it was the type that I wanted anyway, so that I could have neutral or resisted hits into all of their threats, and that they would struggle to hit me for super effective damage. The +2 Focus Blast does take out Porygon 2 in one hit if I'm brave enough to try to target it. But it's mostly just there to power up Make It Rain to do as much damage as I can for the later threats to come out. And realistically, I didn't ever see myself bringing Murkrow and Gholdengo unless something horrible went wrong. And I thought that room service mode was going to work. He is set up so that next to Murkrow, Porygon 2 gets an attack download in case that ever came up. But the way that I saw him getting let out was if they ever manage to get Trick Room set up, and if they have some counter to Dondozo, like Adaptability, Electric, Porygon 2 maybe, that I could have some option into him, maybe surviving a hit, hitting back with Focus Blast. So getting into the games now, the first thing I look at are the Terras. I see that they don't have Terra Fire on the Armarouge, so that physical threat is out, and they don't have Terra Psychic on Hatterene, so they can't do more damage than I really anticipated. I unfortunately don't notice the Terras on the Indeedee because I don't see it as a physical threat, and we'll see what that means for me. So I run with my normal game plan of Slaking Weezing. They run out Jigglypuff and Indeedee. Everything is roughly as I expected, and here's where I make my first mistake. I'm set up so that Hard Press takes out Indeedee, and Indeedee is going to Terra to Fairy, which is still good for Hard Press. But I just get tunneled into the fact that they have Ability Shield on Indeedee, meaning that if I hit with Knockoff, it's going to die, and it doesn't have a Focus Sash. So I can just take it out in one hit and prevent it from getting Trick Room up. So in some of my preparation, up until I realized Hard Press was good enough, I had been doing Knockoff into Indeedee. And so I just go Knockoff into Indeedee, and then I target Jigglypuff with Weezing to try to do more damage into it, because I didn't think I had to double into Indeedee anymore because it doesn't have Focus Sash. So we'll see that they get Psychic Terrain up, and I notice they have Ability Shield, but then they Terra right to Fairy, meaning that the Knockoff doesn't secure the kill. And I get the damage into Jigglypuff like I expected. Jigglypuff thankfully misses the Sing, but it doesn't end up mattering because Slaking doesn't stay in, but they do get the Trick Room up. So now I'm in a really bad spot. This is exactly what I've been wanting to avoid. And so I decide to switch out Slaking here, because Slaking is going to move last, and I really don't want Slaking to get slept. That would be really bad. I switch in Tatsugiri because I don't think that they have a way to take it out. I don't think that Indeedee does enough damage to Tatsugiri. And if Tatsugiri gets slept, then ultimately that's fine. So they go Endeavor into Tatsugiri. I know my Sludge Bomb's going to come out next, and I can take out the Jigglypuff, removing the future Endeavor threat, and then they don't do that much damage with Hyper Voice, which is really good. But that now they bring in Hatterene, which is their biggest threat, and I am stuck here. So after I think about it, there's really nothing else that I can do but put in Dondozo and just hope for the best, because I need Tatsugiri to live. I can't afford to switch Tatsugiri back out and have Slaking take more damage and then not be able to do anything anyway. And I know that I don't have my Sash anymore, which is also really bad. So if they just go Expanding Force, my Weezing can potentially go down. So I switch out Weezing into Dondozo, which is the only move that I have. And then they go Helping Hand, Expanding Force, which does 35% damage, which is less than I expected, actually, because I expected them with a Hatterene to be doing, damage in the 40s with a Helping Hand. But they don't have Life Orb. So it turns out that because they don't have Life Orb, they do a lot less damage into me than I expect. And now I have Dondozo in relatively safely. And so now I can just burn another turn of Trick Room with Protect and see what they do. And so they go Expanding Force, Hyper Voice. Now I have to make a move. So I still have Terra, thankfully, because I didn't have to Terra my Weezing to Dark, which is what I had been prepared to do. And so I Terra to Steel, and my other thought is, once I'm Terra'd, the Hatterene can't do enough damage into me. It only has Expanding Force and Dazzling Gleam, so it can't hit me for super effective damage. And so that means the bigger threat is Indeedee, because it can set up Trick Room again, it can come in and out and reset Psychic Terrain. So once I've taken out Indeedee, the Psychic Terrain threat is gone, and I can handle a Hatterene. So I target Indeedee with this, and I get to take it out. And now the Trick Room is down, and Crabominable comes in. This is the situation that I had also been slightly trying to avoid, because I'm not 100% to take out Crabominable, but I have to go for it anyway. I still don't know what item the Hatterene has, and if it has Focus Sash, then I'm in a really bad spot, because then I've just wasted a turn and I've taken a whole bunch of damage from Hatterene, and Crabominable takes me out for sure. So I can't afford to target into Hatterene. I have to go for a hit into Crabominable. And so I go for it, and thankfully I do get it. I take it out, I activate my berry, and then I would be able to survive another hit from Expanding Force, but he goes for Trick Room instead, meaning I have another turn of attacking to do. They go for Dark Pulse instead of Expanding Force because they don't have Psychic Terrain up anymore, and now I get to Heavy Slam, which just takes out Hatterene. So I still don't know what item it has, but it's not a Focus Sash. And we get to win game 1 relatively safely, even though we had a really scary beginning of the game. Now when we go to game 2, I don't feel the need to change my game plan at all. I just need to execute it properly, because I just didn't remember about the hard press into Indeedee at all. So I go with the same leads and the same backs, and then I see that they too have gone with the same leads. And so now we're in the same position as last game, except this time I'm executing my game plan properly. So I hard press into Indeedee and take it out just as I know it will. And they've burned their Terra, and now I know that Jigglypuff is slower, and I can turn off the Sing, so I get to taunt Jigglypuff. And they use Endeavor, which doesn't work because he has more HP, and now they bring in Alolan Ninetales, which is also not going to work. He doesn't have great offensive options into me. He can do pretty respectable damage, but ultimately hard press is more than enough to take out Alolan Ninetales. So I hard press into Alolan Ninetales, and then I can get some damage into Jigglypuff with Sludge Bomb. And then next, their last Pokemon comes out, and it's Crabominable. Jigglypuff does Endeavor me down to pretty low HP, but Trick Room is not up, and they just have 2 slow threats now. So I have a safe double edge into Crabominable because he has the option still of tearing to poison, so if I hard press, it's not guaranteed to take it out. I don't remember that they've already burned their Terra because they used it on the very first turn and it didn't have any effect. But I was accounting for the Terra anyway. I could have, I guess, hard pressed and gone 8-0. And so Slaking takes himself out, and then Sludge Bomb takes out Jigglypuff, and we win game 2. So that brings us to 7-0 in the regular season, and we haven't dropped a single game all season. I'm really proud of the way that this team worked out, and I'm really proud of the way that I was able to prepare this league. I put a lot of time into all of these matchups and put a lot of effort into all of the spreads and all of the moves, so I'm glad that it worked out every time here. Looking back on how the games went, our first week was our learning week, where we still had just regular Weezing, and it worked out okay against Zachary and his team, which I thought was very scary, and I did put a bunch of time into, but I don't think that the tech choices that I made were nearly as good as they were in the other weeks. I remember the choice that I made was to have the fire move on Weezing to try to take out Bronzong and stop it from setting up a Trick Room. So that was a good set of preparation that ended up working out exactly as I wanted it to. The following week was when I had Overheat for Klefki, and it worked exactly as I thought it would. And then I had the 2-move combinations for Ursaluna and Blood Moon, so that week worked out really well. The next week was when I under-prepared, and this is when I learned that I really need to put as much time as I can into all of these matches, because I under-prepared, I ended up running some of the wrong strategies and not being as familiar with my team as I needed to be, and the games were a lot closer than they were in any of the other weeks. So the main thing I learned was I need to put in the time to prepare and to be familiar with all the moves and to know what all the sequences are going to be in order for me to be successful. I'm not good enough to just go by feel. I need to have it by preparation. But incidentally, because I played the previous week a lot earlier, I had more time to prepare for the match against Josh, which was really necessary because I needed that time to come up with the plans against his Ursaluna. In the beginning, I just thought the match was totally unwinnable until I was finally able to come up with something that worked. But I still needed all of that time to come up with all the different options against the Kilowattrel and against the Morgrem, because all of those were just so good into my team. The week 5 matchup against Eris, I also needed a lot of time for, especially because it was until the last day that I came up with what to do against Hisui and Lilligant. I wasn't even thinking about what the strategy would be against that, but my preparation ended up being exactly what I needed with safety goggles and with Terra Ghost, and also predicting that they'll have entrainment against Slaking and Weezing. So all of that time was really valuable, and all of that preparation was absolutely necessary because the only way I was able to win was because of the preparation that I put in. The next week against Mist, the plan that I had also didn't feel that solid, but it ended up working okay anyway. I had good options to potentially try to stop their Trick Room. I had good moves to try to do good damage into the rest of his team, and my plan was just to try to play solid into their team and try to win a regular game. Because I didn't have enough tech choices that could take me to the victory. And then finally this week, it was more straightforward of preparation in terms of what I had to prepare, but I still needed to put in the time to come up with the moves. And the fact that Slaking learns hard press was really what saved me this week. The fact that Slaking has such a wide move pool and can do so many different things means that it had an option, it had a solution against his team that I could run. Now for the playoffs, I'm probably going to play against Mist in the first round of the playoffs. But at this point, because I've been undefeated in the regular season, I'm good enough to chalk up this whole season as a win, because I want to be focusing my time into playing Pokemon Champions. But I'm still really proud of how I've done. I'm still going to be trying to go undefeated and to continue winning through the league. I think it would be really cool to be able to say I won a league and not just went undefeated in the regular season. So you'll see me again during the playoffs, and hopefully we can continue making a run of this.